Module 3, managing construction dust, following the assess, control and review framework from the HSE. Workplace exposure limits, wells. What is a well? A well is the maximum concentration of an airborne substance averaged over a reference period to which employees may be exposed by inhalation. So wells are occupational exposure limits, OELs, and they're set under Regulation 7 of COSH. They're set on a time-weighted average, a TWA, so they do not actually set limits for 1 or 2 seconds, but they're set either on an LTEL, a long-term exposure limit over 8 hours, or on an STEL, which is a short-term exposure limit of 15 minutes. Many thousands of substances are used at work, but only about 500 substances have actually been set wells, and they are listed in EH40 for workplace exposure limits. So having a closer look at EH40 is the HSE document, and it contains the list of workplace exposure limits for use with the control of substances hazardous to health regulations, the COSH regulations. And what we must take note of is that wells are legally binding, so where they are set, they must be adhered to. What actually does a well look like? So for respirable crystalline silica, RCS, the well is 0.1 milligrams per cubic metre of air, averaged over 8 hours. And what does that look like on the ground? Well, there we can see a penny, and we can see the amount of silica dust that I wouldn't say is safe to breathe in, but that is the amount of dust we're actually talking about. If you look at the photograph on the right hand side, there's uncontrolled, obviously, cutting there with a saw, and you can imagine that that amount of dust would rise quickly to the actual workplace exposure limit. So there are wells for hardwood and also for softwood, and they also must not be exceeded. They're also legally binding. For hardwood dust, this is 3, so that's 3 milligrams per cubic metre of air, and for softwood dust, that is 5, so slightly higher. If hardwood and softwood woods are mixed, then the well for hardwood dusts must be followed. We now look at the assess, control and review framework from the HSE. They give us 3 steps to follow: assess, control and review. So I suppose it is a slight hierarchy of control, not to be mixed up with the more recognisable hierarchy of control that the HSE also talk about, and that is written within ISO 45001, which is eliminate, substitute, engineer controls, administrative controls, and then PP, which is always last. So it's not the same, but it is similar. So let's have a deeper look. Assess. We cannot properly control construction health risks without first having clear plans. So for us, that could look like the construction phase plan. There's a copy there of CIS 80, which is the construction phase plan for busy builders. It's only a 2-page document. And that's going to help us to plan our overall strategy for health. We've then got to identify. This is identify the health hazards linked to the work we're doing. Moving on to assess the significance of these hazards using the COSH assessment that we looked at earlier. And then finally, involve. We must always involve workers in managing health risks. So the photograph you can see there, you can see Ian out on site with one of our clients. Ian is very good at engaging with the clients, with the site managers, and getting them involved in identifying the hazards and then looking at better ways to control the risks. That's assess. Moving on to control. So clear plans are no good if we do not act on them, of course. So we need to prevent risks before the work starts. Earlier on, we looked at the safe system of work. Control any remaining risks, as we can see there with water suppression on the cut-off saw. And then also train. All workers must be trained to recognise the hazards, trained to recognise the control measures. Exactly what you're doing on this course. And then on to the review area. We may have the controls in place, but are they actually working? For this again, this is written in the safe system of work. We need to supervise, maintain the controls that we've got, monitor the controls to ensure they're effective, and then act to put any problems right. So in essence, it's a management system in itself. There we have HSG 65, the plan, do, check and act approach, which ensures monitoring is within there, and obviously acting, the reviewing, and then acting on our findings. Very important. Coming to the end of Module 3, so a recap, a confirmation of knowledge. So about 500 substances have legally binding workplace exposure limits, WELLs, which are listed within EH40, the HSE document. Respirable crystalline silica, RCS, as a workplace exposure limit. And so does hardwood and also softwood. Where woods are mixed, then we will follow the WELL for hardwood. We looked at the HSE framework, assess, control and review. And we also looked at a written safe system of work, which gave us a focus point for the control measures. Thank you for watching and good luck with the assessment.